It's going to be a busy offseason here for the New York Jets. Last week, the club announced they had completed 8 interviews for the defensive coordinator post. We're going to take a look at each candidate coming up next with Brian Baldinger.
We beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Gets running loose. Can't wait.
Baldy, you truly are a man for all football seasons. Where are you this week?
I am presently in Orlando, Florida. I am announcing the All-American Bowl, which is on Thursday night on the NFL Network at 8 o'clock. And so at 7 o'clock this morning, I was in a morning install meeting with Brian Billick, going over yesterday's practice with all the players, with the wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, the whole line. So it was good. So felt like I was going back in time. And then we had about a 2.5 hour practice. And then I met a bunch of the kids after practice and kind of caught up with them, some of the agents. And so it's just it's basically complete immersion, trying to learn like 100 guys that I knew very little about as much as 2 days ago.
It's really picking it up, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far as draft season is concerned, because
it's right here, EA. Honestly, like today's Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I'll be in Mobile, at the Senior Bowl. We're kind of, and I just remember being there last year. I hadn't gone to Mobile in a long time, EA, but I remember last year being there, and I saw Vrabel there, and I saw Kevin Stefanski. I saw a lot of guys there. John Lynch. I knew it was going to be a great crop of defensive linemen. You could tell.
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
tell.
That's right.
Last year was special.
So many things to get to, and you just mentioned Mike Vrabel, and we're going to get to all the coaching changes here in a few moments.
Yeah.
Just to that point, though, Aaron Glenn suddenly is the second longest tenured head coach in the AFC East because Vrabel was hired a couple days before the Jets signed AG.
Well, I mean, nobody knew that this would happen in Buffalo. I mean, they have ruled the AFC East outside of this year in New England. Miami, I don't know if people thought that was going to happen, but here we are. We got 2 big openings in the AFC East this year, and everybody now suddenly, in a matter of 1 year, is looking up to the New England Patriots.
Yeah. So speaking of openings, the Jets have a defensive coordinator opening. On Friday, the team released that they conducted interviews with 8 candidates. Do you want to roll through them, or is there something that caught your eye when you saw the initial list?
Let's just go through the guys. Let's just, and kind of, like everybody has a story and a history and, good and bad in this league. Nobody stays on top. But let's just go through the list.
Yeah, I love it because and we're going to go alphabetical order here.
Okay.
So we're not playing any favoritism, Baldy. All right, Baldy, let's start the list with Matthew Arroyo, who's currently the Miami Dolphins cornerbacks coach. He spent the past 4 seasons with the Dolphins after starting with 7 years in the college ranks.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. I mean, they did make a huge jump this year. I saw them twice this year. I saw them during minicamp in the spring, and then I saw them again during training camp. And I did a show from there, and I talked to Mike McDaniel, talked to a bunch of the guys, at that time, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and a bunch of the guys. And I thought then, in both times, that this was going to be a bad secondary. Now, they traded for Minka Fitzpatrick. Some guys came out of nowhere. They got Rashid come in, at one corner. Like they kind of filled some gaps, but they had some real big holes to start the season. They went through a stretch of about 4 or 5 games, including the second Jet game where they were playing great defensively.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Anthony Weaver who's out there. And I don't know I don't know what the New York Giants are going to do with John Harbaugh, but I mean, I know he liked Anthony Weaver. He drafted by the Ravens, played for the Ravens, coached the defensive line. I mean, I think he's going to be in demand.
Yeah, you're right about that. So Arroyo, he starts our candidates. How about Ephraim Banda from the Cleveland Browns, safeties coach under Jim Schwartz? When you're talking about Cleveland, you're talking about a defense that has been elite the last 3 years.
Well, they've got the best defensive player in the league, to start with, Myles Garrett. But they drafted very well. I mean, if you look at Mason Graham, the 5th pick in the draft, you look at Schlesinger, the 2nd-round pick out of UCLA. I mean, they played literally, they started every game. And Schwartzy is, I'd be surprised if Schwartz doesn't get a job. Honestly, maybe even the Cleveland job. He's very good. But I think guys flourish under Jim. First of all, Jim is a very confident guy. He plays a ton of man coverage, press man coverage. You kind of know what Cleveland's going to do. They're very good at it. I would listen to anybody that's been a protege of Jim Schwartz. Because at one time, Jim was, he was the guy under Jeff Fisher in Tennessee, and he kind of grew up. And so, I mean, I think Schwartz, he started with the Baltimore Colts, and we did stuff getting coffee for guys back in the day. So, I mean, he's worked his way up. So I think he understands getting young guys and training those guys into some of the things that he likes to do.
Yeah, Banda's 44 years old, Baldy. This season, Cleveland ranked number 3 against the pass. And then last season, only team in the National Football League to not allow a 300-yard passer. That was 2024. And you said it. It all starts up front, and the Browns have one of the best defensive linemen in the history of the game, Myles Garrett. But Schwartz is a proven coordinator, and Banda has excelled there as a safeties coach the past 3 seasons. Okay. How about DeMarcus Covington, who spent the past season with the Green Bay Packers as their run game coordinator? That was after spending the previous 8 with the New England Patriots. He's 36 years old.
Yeah, well, he's been working under Jeff Hafley, who just got a job. And I knew Jeff Wood. He was in the league, coached defensive backs in this league, and then became the head coach at Boston College, and then came back to Green Bay. And if you look at what they've done in the secondary, I mean, Keyshawn Nixon was just a guy with the Raiders, and he has flourished as a corner. You look at Xavier McKinney, like he led the league in interceptions, or he was tied for the league 2 years ago when they were second in the league in takeaways in Green Bay. And if you look at the philosophy, I'm sure he's going to adopt the philosophy that Jeff Hafley has, which is basically we're gonna challenge the receivers. We're going to play a ton of press coverage. We're going to funnel everything to the middle of the field. We're going to rob the middle of the field. We need a free safety who's got ball skills. Like, that's kind of how they play. And you look, I mean, they were up 21-3 on Chicago, and they had that one in the bag, and they let it slip away. But I think Covington is a guy that you look at the young safeties that they have in Green Bay, and how Evan Williams, how that guy is factored in the run game. You can't account for him sometimes, and they rob the middle of the field. I see what I see from Covington, from Hafley, is I've seen player development, and that's what every coach covets.
Yeah, another thing. You're right. I'm sorry to interject there, but listen. Covington is a guy who's getting multiple interviews right now as far as the defensive coordinator position throughout the league. How about Chris Harris? We know he started out this year as defensive backs coach, passing game coordinator here with the Green and White. He finishes the year as the defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn said he was going to be, in fact, interviewing for the job, and he was one of the 8. Good.
I mean, I think that he's got a good resume. And I think he's a good teacher. You need teachers. And, you've got to, I mean, this league right now, I mean, these games are being decided by the secondary. They call no flags all game, and then you get 2 pass interference penalties at the end of a, AFC divisional championship game. And next thing you know, one team, Buffalo's going home, And so how you're coaching this up right now and the techniques you're coaching with, you better be very sound in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to give up big plays.
I will also say not really a complete fair assessment of what Harris can do at the coordinator level, because he's taken over with 3 games left in the season. Jets dealing with a lot of injuries, and you can't make too many changes to your system at that point. I
mean, honestly, the best announcer in the world would have trouble identifying some of the guys playing the secondary for the Jets in those last 3 games.
How about Donte Jones, 47 years old? He just completed his 5th season with the Minnesota Vikings as defensive backs coach and 3rd as passing game coordinator. He's learned under guys like Brian Flores and Mike Zimmer, of course. This past season, Minnesota finished number 2 against the pass, number 3 overall, and tied for 10th in takeaways.
Well, the year before, they led the league in takeaways. they're number one. And when you look at what they do, that's going to be the defense that everybody's adopting the league, what Brian Flores is doing. Everybody's got a package of that. But Brian Flores started it in Miami, where you give them a blitz zero look, and you're just trying to figure out who's coming and who's dropping. And, what is our protection to handle it? Like the Chargers couldn't handle that against the Patriots. And what they do, they end up firing the offense line coach and offense coordinator. They couldn't protect their quarterback. I would covet anybody, and I think Brian Flores is going to get a job. This is his defense. And so, when he went to Pittsburgh, they got better. Everywhere he's gone. I'm talking about Brian Flores now. So
yeah,
if there's a disciple underneath him, and you look at the guys they had, like, for example, one of their corners was a backup with the Eagles. Trying to remember his name right now. It's just blanking. But he was in and out of the league. Isaiah Rodgers. Isaiah Rodgers is one of his corners. If you look at Byron Murphy Jr., like, he's a very sharp kid. But I remember talking to him. He had 6 interceptions last year. I remember talking to Brian this summer about the defense that they play in. And I think players love playing in that style because the ball is going to come out hot. You're going to get chances for interceptions.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's a little bit not quite what Rex used to do, but the ball's going to come out. Quarterback's not holding the ball, EA. And so I think Durante would be an excellent candidate right now, just because I know he knows the scheme.
All right. Give me your thoughts on this one. I think most of the Jets Nation has circled this name as soon as they heard it. That's Jim Leonard. He's 43 years old. He's currently in the playoffs with the Broncos in his second season with Sean Payton. And first is defensive pass game coordinator, assistant head coach. Of course, you go back to 2009 through 11, Baldy. Started 40 games for the green and white in regular season play.
That was Rex's barrel. That was Rex's guy here. That was all. Rex
he started free agency in 2009 and said, hey, I need 2 guys who know my system. I'm getting Bart Scott. I'm getting Jimmy Leonard. Yep.
It's funny that you're bringing up Jim. Just today, I was talking to a scout of the Broncos, and his name came up because he was coaching defense at the University of Wisconsin. And literally from the day he left, that program's gone downhill. Nobody trained linebackers the way the University of Wisconsin did. Going back to T.J. Watt, you just go through all these guys, with Zach, Nick Herbig. Leo Chenal. You go through the list of these guys in this league. They're all trained under Jim at Wisconsin at some point. Look, that defense is under Vance Joseph is talented. They led the league in sacks. You can't lead the league in sacks if you're not covering on the back end. And so I think Jim Leonard, he'd get a great deal of attention from me. I know he's a good teacher. I met him. In fact, I saw him, EA. If you remember, the Jets played Denver last year, not this year, last year, in that rain game at Jet Life Stadium. And I remember talking to Jim before the game. We were kind of talking about Wisconsin and his days there, and he should have gotten the head job there. But regardless, he's been a big part of that turnaround there in Denver.
To your point about Wisconsin, he was the defensive coordinator there for 7 seasons. So he's a guy comfortable calling the plays. And I'll tell you what, going back to his playing days, since I've been here for a long time, he's one of the brightest players that I've ever covered, man. He knew it all inside and out. One of the things that he did in Baltimore that was so impressive before he got here, they knew they were playing with a legendary player with Ed Reed. So they would let Ed Reed freelance, and Jimmy knew, hey, listen, you got to go do your thing and be you. I got everything else.
I've talked to Ed about that. I've talked about Ed freelancing. Sometimes Ed will tell you that they didn't let him do it enough. But when you have players that have unique instincts, because that traveled with Ed on back to high school in Louisiana, all the way to the University of Miami, and then, throughout the NFL. Like, when you have players like that, you have to let them roam and let them bait quarterbacks. And you got to have a guy, that's what Troy Polamalu did. And they had Ryan Clark there in Pittsburgh to cover for him and let him go. But what it says is you can adapt your system to unique talents. Now, the Jets don't have nobody has Ed Reed, but the point is, he was able to adapt his system. Rex adapted his system to, when he got Cromartie and he had Revis, he adapted his system. And so that's what these guys got to do. But I'm with you on Jim Leonard. I know Jim better than any of the other guys that you've mentioned. That doesn't mean the other guys aren't qualified. But if I was to start a defense today and somebody said Jim Leonard is your defensive coordinator, I'd go, hallelujah. I'd feel really good about him.
Yeah, he always struck me as a coach on the field, and then also he had underrated athleticism because he wasn't the biggest guy in the world.
But punt returner.
Yeah,
he was the punt returner.
Yeah, he could do anything. I remember talking to him about playing baseball coming up. He was throwing 90-mile-per-hour fastballs. He was dunking basketballs, things like that.
He
Is
was
that you get
at his size?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Really? That's underrated. Because he's not, if he's 5'10", he's stretching it.
Oh yeah, but he always had bounce to his game. And
okay. Wow.
Leonard accomplished a lot in his NFL career. Okay, before we get to another guy, the other thing is 2014, Jimmy was on a Cleveland Browns defense that was coordinated, I believe, by Jim O'Neil, who we're going to get to in a second, and also Aaron Glenn was assistant defensive backs coach there. So that was AG's start in the NFL coaching that 2014 season. Jimmy Leonard, a player, Jimmy O'Neil, defensive coordinator. We'll get to that in a second. How about Wink Martindale?
Well, I got a soft spot for Wink.
Yeah,
I've known Wink a long, long time. I'll give you two quick stories on Wink. Okay, the Jets were playing the Giants in a preseason game when Aaron Rodgers was your quarterback. And he played 10 snaps in one preseason game against the Giants. And I remember talking to Wink, who was the defense coordinator for the Giants then. He said he was going to give Aaron Rodgers a blitz zero look every play. He just wanted to see, because you're going to play him in the middle of the season. He just wanted to see what Aaron's adaptation to that was in a preseason game. He was already thinking ahead. Wins the national championship at Michigan. Yeah. They have a guy there in New York, Giants, Dexter Lawrence, big guy, 360 pounds, and really didn't do much his first 2 or 3 years in the league. And Wink challenged him, and he said, if you're not in the Pro Bowl, it's my fault. I'm going to get it out of you. And he turned his whole career around under Wink Martindale. If I have a question about any question about any player coming out of the Big Ten, I call Wink, because he's been there for a couple years now. But even in the NFL, I would just ask him about anything that I see, a trend, a player, whatever. He would always get back to me. And I don't do this with a lot of guys, but I have a good relationship with Wink. That guy is a born defensive coordinator. He is literally about as close to Rex as there is in football right now.
Yeah. Speaking of that, 4-time defensive coordinator in the NFL. You mentioned the Giants, 2022-23, Baltimore,
Raiders,
2012 through 21, Denver, 2008 through 2010, and you go back to the days of the Oakland Raiders, 2004 to 2009, and one thing that is a trademark of Wink Martindale, they are going to be blitzing off the bus.
Yes, they are. And he's going to break your protection down. And he's going to get speed and free hitters to the quarterback. He's going to heat them up. Those last two guys now, Jim Leonard and Wink Martindale, I know they can flat out coach. And your defense is going to be improved. And players are going to enjoy playing for both those guys.
Yeah. How about Jimmy O'Neil? I mentioned him with Cleveland in 2014. You can go back to his days here with Mike Pettin and Rex Ryan. Obviously, he also, the past couple seasons, he's been in Detroit, so there was a connection there with Aaron Glenn again. Veteran defensive assistant with the Lions, just completed his second season there with Detroit. AG obviously came on board here with the Jets last season, but you go back to Cleveland as well. So a lot of connections there with Jimmy O'Neil.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a solid resume. I know he hasn't called defenses the last couple seasons, but he knows what's going on. He knows the trends. I'd be look. I think a similar role with the Jets, not the defense coordinator, but a similar role. You can't help but have benefit by having a good set of eyes like Jim has over practice and at games, and just another a guy that you can lean on. Just for it could be a call, it could be a look, it could be how to handle a particular receiver. Like you love that kind of input with a guy like that.
Just from a pure safety position, Kirby Joseph led the NFL in 2024 with the 9 interceptions, and Brian Branch has become one of the finest safeties in the entire league. I wanted to ask you this about AG's philosophy. He said going into this that when it comes to coaches, man, I would like to be aggressive. I want to make sure that whoever the guy is that we do bring in, that there's a lot of synergy between me and that coach. And I'm not saying there wasn't any synergy between me and Steve Wilks. It's just I want to make sure as I go through this process that that's not a step that I miss. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, he's right. I mean, Aaron's right about that. I've been around Mike McDonald and his defense quite a bit. They're the number one defense in football right now. And I was around the whole team 2 weeks ago when they're finishing up the season. And I've been around Mike a bunch. There is, when you talk about synergy now, not just amongst coaches, but the synergy amongst players, they love practicing. They love each other. They love competing against each other, and they have fun together. Like it reminds me of what Rex had when he was in New York. And I don't want to compare, the next coaching staff to Rex, but we know how much fun they had and how good they were. Now they're great players too, and so does Seattle. Like they've drafted very, very well. I mean, there's Leonard Williams, like all pro Leonard Williams, like there he was. But what I'm getting at, EA, is like, you see John Franklin Myers starting for the Denver Broncos. Leonard Williams, all pro with Seattle. They've all come through the New York Jets. But everything was in flux. It was no stability at any point between general manager, coach, And so do you pay these guys? All this stuff that happened. But when you get the right guys, they don't want to leave, and you don't want them to leave. And you start building that synergy that Aaron's talking about with coaches, but it permeates through the whole thing, through the whole organization. You can feel it. The secretaries feel it. They know it. They like practice is not like winning helps. EA, don't get me wrong. You win like Seattle's winning, but they won 10 games last year, and here they are in the AFC Championship game. It took them a half a year to figure out Mike McDonald's defense, which is complex. But when you see it working right now, there's a reason why he was the number one defense in Baltimore. There's a reason why he's the number one defense in Seattle. There's a reason why they fired John Harbaugh in Baltimore. They had the best defense. They had the league's MVP, and they couldn't get over the hump. Like, wherever Mike McDonald goes, like you're seeing that feeling that they love playing in that scheme.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment there. You got to love it, and it has to be personal. And that's the thing that happens with the great defense is that it doesn't matter how much money the guy next to you makes, is that you're all playing together. You all have a role, and you're defending every blade of grass. That's the common trait of great defenses is that they want to be badasses. They want to be known as an elite unit that doesn't give up anything. And when they do, they're pissed off about it.
Oh, yeah. No. They didn't, like San Francisco just played them twice in the last 3 weeks. They didn't score a touchdown. They scored, the quarterback was heating up every team he played against. Couldn't score a touchdown against Seattle. Like, it was personal. Like, they're not getting it. Like, Christian McCaffrey, he's not crossing the goal line. Like, it was personal. But when I was around those guys a couple weeks ago, there's something about pregame warm-up. The whole team is out there together. The whole team. Nobody's in the locker room. The linemen are out there. They're working on their sets. Defensive linemen are working on their pass rush. Like everybody's working, and you can kind of feel like it's just all right. Let's like game days. This is where we get to really like take our test and really see what we've learned this week.
All right, things move quickly in the NFL, and nobody knows that better than you. Right now, at the time of taping, it's Tuesday afternoon, there are 6 openings. I wanted to ask you about, okay, so the Bills have the opening, Baltimore's out there, the Las Vegas Raiders, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Arizona. How could potentially some of those openings and the dominoes impact the Jets in this current search for the defensive coordinator?
Well, I mean, there might be a drain of coaches from other organizations, like, Mike McDaniel, who the Jets have had a hard time beating. Let's face it. Mike is going to be gone. He's gone now. Anthony Weaver might go. Like, you're going to get a drain of, from Miami. You're going to get a drain from Buffalo, 2 teams that you're competing against right now. Like, I don't know who's going to stay if Joe Brady gets elevated in Buffalo, Brian Dable goes up there, and who he brings. But they're going to lose, coaches that have had, good success against the Jets for the most part are going to be gone. That affects the Jets right away. There's only the coaches are going to get hired, 6 more. But what coaches are they taking with them?
Yeah.
And really because the stronger the staff. I mean, there's John Benton, coaching the offensive line up in Seattle. Like, John was there. You guys had him. So there's a carousel of but you need a good staff. LaFleur is probably going to be a coordinator someplace. He was calling plays for, a couple of years ago in New York.
All right. So you've been doing the college all-star circuit. I wanted to ask you quickly about the draft. Early thoughts, and we're going to have time to talk about this, but just real early thoughts. It's late January. Fernando Mendoza, do you view this as being done, that he's going to be the number 1 overall selection to the Raiders?
No. I mean, I know he's 16-0, and he had a miraculous season. I don't think it's Joe Burrow. I just don't think he's Joe Burrow, but that's what Joe did. Joe went undefeated at LSU, won a championship, and he was the number 1 pick, and it was unanimous. And Joe Brady was, when Joe Brady came, everything changed for him. So he was able to flourish in a system where get 5 guys out, let me read the defense, I'm going to find the opening guy that fast. I don't think Fernando Mendoza doesn't call any plays. He looks at the sideline. He doesn't call any checks. Like, he looks at the sideline for what the play is. He's in shotgun. He's not under center. Like, there's certain things that they're not flags, because you can still change and alter. Cam Ward went under center this year in Tennessee, played pretty good. It all can change, but this process, even when Cam Newton was the first player drafted in 2011, I mean, Cam Newton went through these car washes, and everybody was trying to rip him apart. 1-year player at Auburn, all this stuff. So they're going to try to do the same thing. He might end up being it because it might be A, he might be that good, and B, it could be the position of need for quite a few teams at the top of the draft. But I don't think it's unanimous right now that he's the number 1 player.
Yeah, so I just want to end here. We know the Jets have a lot of draft capital. They have 4 picks in the top 44, number 2 overall, number 16 there in the first round. They have more than $90 million in cap space. Obviously, a lot of holes with this roster. We're going to find out where they're going with the coaching staff. But with number 2 overall, do you have any comments on any of these guys? I'm not asking you where you think the Jets are going, just a feel for a few of these players, whether it be Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State, or his college teammate Caleb Downs, a very impressive safety, or Jeremiyah Love, who was outstanding running back for Notre Dame. We hear a lot about the impressive edge from Texas Tech, David Bailey. And then at the wide receiver position, you got Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Man, Ohio State is always loaded there in the first round. And then we saw last night another guy who's probably going to be a top 5 selection or top 7 selection, Ruben Bain from Miami. Yeah.
Well, Ruben Bain is being coached by Jason Taylor. He's a defensive line coach at Miami. So I watched him. I went down to watch Mario Cristobal's team practice in the spring. I haven't seen a practice like that in football at any level in 15 years. Like, it was 3 hours, contact every single drill. Reminded me of me playing with the Cowboys in the 80s. That Ruben Bain has been coached great, and nothing has been given to him. David Bailey, I saw him play, met him this year at Texas Tech, did one of his games. I just heard a story about David Bailey today. they paid him $4 million to go there to play. He lived across the street in a 1-bedroom apartment and drove the car that he drove in high school. He didn't spend one dime of that NIL money on anything. He literally bought the apartment across the street so he could just go that close to go to the film room and study and train. So sometimes, you get to know these guys and they all of a sudden, okay, he's this guy, he's this caliber player, but he's this caliber person. The game of football puts him even up here. So those guys are there. This is a great draft for offensive tackles, not a position need for the Eagles, for the Jets. It is for the Eagles, but I do think that this draft I'm gonna see it at the Senior Bowl next week. I do think it's going to be a good draft for defensive linemen, and I don't think you can waste picks on good defensive linemen.
Yeah. Listen, you mentioned Bailey. That was a great story. And I love Bain's motor, man. He's not the biggest guy in the world in terms of what he's bringing from the edge position, but he plays like he's the monster,
He does. But, the good thing about Bain is this. You want to find out what he's like. You can spend 30 minutes with him at the combine or, bring him in for a private workout, whatever. But I think if you talk to Jason Taylor or Mario Cristobal, they're going to just shoot you straight. Is he late for a meeting? Or has he never been late for a meeting? I mean, you're going to be able to – they've got two guys that you can trust that when they look you in the eye and they tell Aaron or Muji or whoever, like, this is what you're getting, like, you can rest assured that they're going to shoot you straight.
And final thought here. We know Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. We saw Ty Simpson early in the season. He played really well with Alabama. I like the way he maneuvered the pocket. I thought he was quite accurate. He was dealing with injuries down the stretch. You get an initial feel on him as the draft process really starts to heat up, like you just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, he did tail off as the season went on. No question, he tailed off a little bit. And for whatever reason, we got to find that out. I haven't studied close enough. Look, the fight is going to be for Fernando. I mean, it just is. And the Jets need a proven starting quality quarterback. The way Josh Allen, the way the guys are in this league, that they can just elevate the program. I remember meeting Drake May at a high school football camp, quarterback collective, when Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams all came out. And I sat with those three guys and others, Garrett Nussmeier. I sat in a film room with these guys and put on Mahomes tape and put on different defenses and had those guys break the defenses down, how to attack them, what's the route combination, what are you looking at here, what do you do against the blitz. I mean, these kids, they're so ready for today's game, honestly. Like Drake May, I could show that film of you right now with Drake May, and you feel like you're talking to the same kid today. Like mature, smart, poised. Same thing with Jaden. Caleb especially, it was nothing to him to figure any of this stuff out. And that's what I just mentioned three guys, but that's what you have to draft. They cannot, they have to get this right, and they know it.
Nussmeier is a guy who had a lot of hype coming into this season for whatever reason. There's multiple. When you look at that LSU offense, he didn't have the success a lot of people anticipated. That doesn't mean he couldn't have a great pre-draft season, I should say, and really improve his stock. Caleb Williams, the fourth down throw, the touchdown pass, where does that rank all time?
Well, it's different than any Hail Mary pass because it's not a Hail Mary where he's just he's actually trying to avoid the rush. Because in Hail Mary passes, you rarely get a four-man rush. The way he had Kobe Turner coming at him, Jared Verse, they're all, Isaiah Stewart, they're all coming after him. And he set his back foot at the 40-yard line and launched it over the head of Kobe Durant into the weight and arms of Cole Kmet. It's as good a throw. You didn't win the game, so it can't be at the best, but it's as good a throw in a playoff game in that spot that we've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, hopefully
it's fourth down. It's fourth down. There's no tomorrow. That's it.
Yeah.
One shot.
it left me in disbelief. I just saw him retreating, and it's one thing going back, and another one heaving it up. But the way he positioned that ball,
up, though, but like even to locate Cole Kmet, like to even see him under that duress, and of course he didn't see the completion because he's on his back, but like he's going to get blasted by Jared Verse and Isaiah Stewart and Kobe Turner together, and to even locate Cole Kmet 45 yards down the field is amazing all by itself. And then to have the arm strength to get it there the way it did.
Well, Baldy, this was fun as always, buddy. Enjoy the All-Star circuit, and I know the next time we'll be touching bases when you're in Mobile or maybe following the Senior Bowl.
Let's do it. I look forward to it, EA. Let's get this thing back on track, man. Let's build this thing up the right way right now, honestly.